Thank you for being here. I got asked to speak because, as I said, so my degree is in psychology, but my day job is at Sandag doing research, and I've been there since 1993. But I've always been on that quest of self-knowledge, and my children make fun of me because I keep reading self-help books and different things. But I really do think that life is a journey, and it's interesting as we think about our second half of life. I just turned 53, and it's funny how we still feel like children inside, but it's like life gets. I'm reading a book right now about how life can get simpler as we get older because you can take off that mask, and I think there's always more to learn. And I got asked to speak on KUSI because some of the producers there had seen some of my posts, and it really is my passion. So thank you for letting me share that with you here. And I'd love to get your feedback and your thoughts too, because I'm sure you all have life lessons. I don't think anybody meets by accident. But the first talk that I did was kind of looking at 2020 as we closed out, and 2021 as we started. And I think it's fair to say that in 2020, we all lost something, whether it was a loved one, whether it was an experience, whether it was a job. And so it's really fair to say that we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. And how do we have compassion for ourselves and others as we really try to struggle through these challenging times when we don't have control over so many things? And so it's interesting, we started the second month of the year now, and as I started the second month, I was thinking, okay, we're 1/12 of the way done, kind of taking a look back. So these questions might be a little bit dated, but if you haven't asked yourselves them yet, it still may be good because you could. I think it's always good to take an inventory of what have we have accomplished, where have we come from, and then looking forward. And so the 4 questions I asked myself, and I encourage people to do at the end of 2020, was what hurt you in 2020? A lot of times we can push down the hurt. And I think a secret to life is finding that sweet spot where you can feel the things you need to feel, but then also move forward with them, taking those experiences into new opportunities. What was beautiful in 2020? Personally, I used to work downtown, and I've been telecommuting since then. So I think I played more Scrabble and watched more sunsets and gone on more walks. It really was that slowdown that I think I needed. My oldest daughter is a senior in high school right now, so I'm very brutally aware that she's going to be out of the house soon, and so I'm grateful for that, even though it's not how I envision the slowing down to happen. What do you want to take into 2021? And then what do you want to leave behind in 2020? And I think doing that self-reflection and journaling it can be very helpful. And then I know I'm going to try to keep doing that every month, is like, what went well the past month? And then as we move into the next month again, maybe where do you want to refocus? So there's so many lessons out there, and there's so many teachers out there. I really am amazed at I feel like my birthday was last week, and we're in the age of Aquarius right now, and I really do feel like we have a new awakening of people really being open to more dialogue and so many changes and openness that's around us. So it's hard to get it down to something that can just be shared in a short nugget, but I try to. So I do hope you'll get something out of this. So my first tip is, what does a good day look like for you? And I heard a quote once, and it was on a running podcast, and it was, do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I think we can get so overwhelmed sometimes on the big things in life, and we miss out that it really can be the little things, whether it's taking time to meditate in the morning, making sure you go on a walk. And I started trying to keep track on like a little calendar of the things that I did, so I could look back over the week and remember what was a good day for myself, and what my good day may not be your good day, but is it when you turn off your phone a half hour before bedtime? So really trying to look at, like, when you felt best, what did that day look like, and how can you bring that into your day every day? Because when we look back on a good life, it's going to be made up of good days. So don't get overwhelmed on the big long-term goals. Just take today and think about what's going to make your day good. And this is a Brene Brown quote: joy comes to us in the ordinary moments. We risk missing out when we get too busy chasing down the extraordinary. And I think that's really true. It's like I personally hate New Year's Eve and Valentine's Day, because there's so much pressure associated, or when you get ready to go on that big vacation and you think it needs to be so memorable. And anytime I see somebody younger now who's getting married, I try to remind them about that you have so many expectations with things are going to be big and magnificent. Well, it's really those quiet moments that can take your breath away. And how do you cherish those, and how are you present enough for those in the daily basis? Second tip is, what's your story? And there's a difference between perception and actual reality. And I had a great example of this come yesterday. Um, I was left out of a budget meeting at work, and then I was expected to do something, and got an email saying follow up to the email. And I was like, well, I was never included in the meeting. And I realized, I caught myself, which I think is self-growth. And I don't know if anybody on here or listening in the future can relate to this. I was able to see that my reaction to it was bigger than the actual just getting left off a meeting. And as I kind of sat in that, I thought, oh, okay, this is going back to that inner child of not fitting in, not being respected. And I was able to process that. But if I hadn't had done that work, I was creating a story around it. And there's a great book, and I have at the list at the end of this presentation, some of my book recommendations in case they're ones that you haven't read and they might resonate with you. It's called The Four Agreements. And the four agreements are to not take anything personally, to don't make assumptions, to be impeccable with our word, and do the best we can. So I think it's really important sometimes to think, is what you're thinking about something really true? Can you know that 100%? There's something called the work where you question those assumptions you have. And another way to look at it is, instead of like when things happen to you, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? What is this trying to teach me? Always wanting to be open to experiences, to creativity. And I think that that can really be a shift. Another great way to look at it that I heard was, are you asking yourself, and I might have this on a later slide, but I think it's relevant here too, is, are you more focused on solutions or the questions or the problems? And so really trying to look at what story you're telling yourself. Do you know it's true? And then maybe trying to change that story and make an interpretation that's more consistent with the person you want to be. So these are just some other sayings. Again, don't take things personally. Another great quote is, don't expect, just accept. And I think a lot of problems in my life have come when I've wanted somebody to be somebody they weren't. When you have expectations about somebody meeting your needs. I saw a great quote that I have hanging on my wall right now from Wayne Dyer called, love is the ability and willingness to allow those that you care for to be what they choose for themselves without any insistence that they satisfy you. So I think it's really important to stay in your lane, to look at your story, to not take things personally, because it can get really tiring to think the world revolves around you. And I know that when I was younger, I probably did that a lot more than I'm willing to admit. And then a quote from one of our presidents, remember, you're just an extra in everyone else's play. I think it's always important too to try to find the humor in situations, and to remember that everybody else out there has a life that's just as rich with details as ours. And everybody's probably more worried about their own story than they are about you, if you're ever worried about what other people are thinking about you. Worry and anxiety. I love this little diagram. Do you have a problem? Yes. Can you do something about it? Yes. Then don't worry, because you're going to do it. If you can't do anything about it, don't worry. And do you have a problem? No, then don't worry. They say that worrying is like a rocking chair, because it keeps you moving and keeps you busy, but it's not taking you anywhere. And we all like to think, we like to plan, we like to solve problems, but when thinking can get out of control, it can lead to anxiety. The difference between worry and anxiety: worry can be more problem and solution focused, and it's more in the brain. Anxiety can be when it's can take over our entire body, and a common term for anxiety can be monkey mind. And as somebody who is, I have a tank top. If it wasn't so cold, I would have read it. It said, hold on and let me overthink this. I can overthink everything. I like to control, I like to predict, but I think a lot of what comes through everything in life is that there's really only two emotions, either fear or love. And I think fear, I heard another great quote, fear underlies every bad decision that's ever made. And I think that a lot of worrying and anxiety is we're just trying to avoid pain. And again, is that going back to something that happened at an early point in time? There's a great Buddhist story about the second arrow. And when something happens to us, that's the first arrow. And it can be a real arrow that causes pain to us. Something didn't turn out the way we wanted to. Somebody hurt us. We lost something that was meaningful to us. But then the second arrow we do to ourselves because we ruminate on it and we keep thinking about it. And then we bring it into the future with us. So I think a good question to ask ourselves is, do you really want to shoot that second arrow? And that's where we can control our thoughts. And this is where I'm not sure if people on the call have are practitioners of meditation. I use the Calm app. Again, just that trying to like take that time to see your thoughts. And there's a lot of books out there about how your thoughts are the clouds in the sky. It's not the sky, and to accept it and to not judge ourselves, which is another tip I'm going to have, but really trying to see those thoughts and let them pass. There were I spoke on KUSI about worry and anxiety this last weekend, and I shared 4 kind of concrete tips. This actually was a couple of weeks ago. And the first, I called them the 4 S's. If you're trying to deal with some worry and anxiety and you just can't stop those thoughts from coming. And one is, so be it. And this comes from, think about if you were driving down the road and you can see the lines are white. Would you get yourself worked up because you think the line should be yellow or orange or blue or green? There are certain things in life that we can just accept and we say, so be it. And so I think that can be a healthy attitude, that sometimes you're not going to worry, why does the sun rise in the east? It should rise in the west. And it's so ridiculous that you would question that. But think about, are there other areas in your life where you're worked up that something didn't go the way it can? And another example to this is like, I'll be at the grocery store and I see someone not put the cart back. Well, you know what? Is it my job to tell them what to do? I can, am I going to get worked up about that or not? So, so be it sometimes. Surrender. This is so powerful, and it's letting things go. When you think about, sometimes I think we need to do our best, but if you were baking a cake, you wouldn't keep opening up the oven. If you planted a seed, you wouldn't keep undigging it to see if it was actually growing in the dirt. And so I think that we definitely need to do our best. I think that we can't see too far out ahead. And I think it's important sometimes just to trust the universe that the next step is going to come if you're aligning with your soul, what your soul is telling you, your energy is telling you. So that concept of surrender. So what is the third one? And the so what came from a book, again, that I have at the end of the PowerPoint. And this makes me laugh when I think about it. So if somebody writes, if you're on social media and somebody writes you a snarky comment, or somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're ruminating on it, so what? So what that they did that? And a good way to look at this is, if something is bothering you, is it going to make a difference in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks, 5 months? And a lot of the things that we may worry about in the long run really don't matter. So if you got a new pair of shoes and somebody made a comment that they didn't like them, so what? And sometimes you just need to say, so what? And then the stay in your own lane is a powerful one for me. There's 3 lanes: our lane, other people's lanes, and then the universe, or depending on how you see a higher power, God's lane. And really the only thing we can control in life is ourselves. And we really do get into trouble when we start trying to get into somebody else's lane and trying to control things that really aren't our business. So a lot of the worry and anxiety, I think, can come when you surrender, you accept things as they are, and we stay in our own lane. Number 4 is gratitude. And gratitude really is the foundation, I think, for so much. Another great quote: it's not happy people who are thankful, it's thankful people who are happy. Robert Louis Stevenson had a great quote, which is, the man who forgets to be thankful has fallen asleep in life. And I think that that's really true. And I think that when we can consciously focus on gratitude, we can wake up from our cruise control. How many times have anybody here, you've driven from one place to another and you can't even remember the drive, that cruise control of not being present. And I think a lot too, I'm not sure how much you've read or heard about law of attraction, or there's a concept in psychology called self-fulfilling prophecies, though. And I really do think that we create our own reality. if we're focused on the good around us, you're going to walk around smiling and happy, and more good things will come to you. When you're walking around with a frown on your face, or you're focused in your mind on all your problems, it's harder to be open to the opportunities that are around us, and you'll just walk by that open door that you could have walked into. Oprah Winfrey had another great quote, and I love Oprah's Super Soul Sundays and her messages. But if you concentrate on what you don't have, you'll never have enough. But if you concentrate on what you do have, you'll always have more. Some practical tips for gratefulness. And I make myself laugh every time. I know I'm one of my good friends with this. Instead of just calling it gratefulness, when you are grateful, you have gratefulness inside you, and it really does come out and creates positive energy around the people around you. And I like to think of it too. I think happiness, optimism, think of a light switch, and we all may have a set point, but I think that can be raised if we try to, again, consciously practice and commit to those behaviors that would lead us in that direction. And one is, they did research that if you just for 21 days take a few moments at the start of every day to write down 3 things, and they need to be 3 different things that you're grateful for. I did it today, and it was my hot cup of coffee, it was my hot shower, and it was the ability to go for a little run, and because those are things that a lot of people in the world don't have. But if you do that, you actually, studies and research have shown you'll have a greater level of happiness at the end of those 3 weeks. Another way is slowing down and savor. When we think about the 5 senses, and if I asked all of you, what was the last thing that you saw that you really stopped and took your breath away, the last beautiful thing you heard, the last thing you touched that was soft or comforting, the last smell that stayed with you? So really having a sense of stopping and savoring the food that we're tasting, I think that can bring it in gratitude in simple ways. And the third way is, I was a hospice volunteer for a little bit of time, and one of the trainings that they had us go through was, imagine not that you've passed away, but losing the quality of life that you have, and what is important to you that you would miss having someday. And I think that's a good exercise to do whenever we're not appreciating everything around us. Being able to go for a drive and drive yourself, walking around a grocery store yourself, looking at the things, or going window shopping, or being able to go on an airplane, being able to play with your children or grandchildren. So really thinking about all the physical or mental capabilities that we have right now that we are not always going to have. Change is the one thing that's guaranteed. So really trying to appreciate them while we have them. And then the fourth is little shifts that we can take. Again, this is just little tricks with semantics, but instead of saying I have to do something, say I can. Instead of saying I have to go to work or I have to clean my house, well, I can, and I'm lucky to have a job or a house. If you're late for meeting somebody, instead of saying I'm sorry, thank the person for waiting for you. And then I love list, and I'm very type A, and like making my to-do list. And then many times at the end of the day, I'll be focused on what I didn't get done on the list rather than what I did. So again, trying to love that inner child of us and be grateful for all the things you did do and you were able to accomplish, I think can kind of shift your end of the night routine. Number one was having good days. And I think part of having good days, at least for me, is setting up good morning routines, but also good nighttime routines so that your day is going to start out the best way when it comes to the next one. Number 5, are you looking forwards or backwards? And this picture that I love here, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this before, that the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason, because you're not looking backwards, you're looking forwards. I think it's important. I think a lot about the sweet spot. And by the sweet spot, I mean feeling what you need to feel, because I think our feelings tell us something. But then how do you not drown in your feelings and move on from them? I think it's important to process what happened in your past. If we keep pushing things down, those emotions will keep coming back up. But then how do you, to deal with that, how do you not shame yourself? Another Buddhist story where that there were 2 monks crossing a river. and they weren't allowed to have any interaction with women. And there was a woman who was trying to get across the river, but was unable to. And the senior monk picked up the woman and carried her across the river, which basically was against the vows he had taken, helped her, and then kept going. And his younger apprentice was very troubled by this. And the older monk said, you know, what's wrong? And he said, you broke your vow. How did you do that? And he said, why did you do that? And I'm not doing justice to the story. It's much more beautiful if you Google it. But he said, basically, I left her back on the river. Why are you still carrying her? And I think that, I don't know if guilt and shame is something I see. It seems like right now there's mostly women on here. I think a lot of women I know carry a lot of guilt and shame because we have so many balls in the air and so many roles we could fulfill, and there's so much social comparison we could do. So I do think it's important to process those feelings that we have, to do the inner child work that we need to do, but then every day is a new day, and to continue to look forward. And another thing here I love to say is the bad news and the good news is that the only captain of your ship is you. You have control over your destiny. And so the best way to create the future, to predict the future, is to create it. And I think that that's really powerful once we get to that point where we can realize that we don't need to let the past define us, that everyone has 24 hours in a day, that we all have a hand of cards that we've been dealt. And how are you going to play those hand that you've been dealt? Because life isn't fair, but we all have the opportunity to make the best of what we have. Number 6, for somebody who, again, I love to control and predict, don't plan too far ahead. Another presidential quote, plans are nothing, but planning is everything. And I think this is really key, is that the only guarantee thing in life is that life is not going to go as planned. Obviously, last year was a perfect example of that. If we had said that you thought, if I had even asked you back in April, do you think in next February, we're all still going to be on stay-home orders? I don't think anybody would have predicted that this was going to be what 2021 was going to look like. So I think it's important to have our dreams, do our work, be prepared for it, but riding the waves that come to us, being prepared for opportunities as they come, because I think that a lot of the best laid plans really don't happen because you may miss out on the opportunities that are there. And I know some people in my life get overwhelmed with where they want to go so that they never take any action. And I thought this is a great visual. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step. Fear. I mentioned already that I think that there's only 2 emotions, fear and love, and that a lot of bad decisions really do come from fear of people being hurt, fear that comes out as anger, fear that comes out as judgment. And Tim Ferriss has a great quote, is that what we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. And there's another great quote from Richard Branson, that if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I wanted to include this here because I think a lot of people can sometimes think that I'll wait till I'm 100% ready to do something. I have a friend who wants to run a 5K, and she told me that she was going to train, and then when she was ready, she was going to sign up for the 5K. And I said, no, you need to sign up for the 5K to use that to commit to yourself and to motivate you to be ready to run the 5K. And I think, again, making kind of some books I've read on gender differences, women sometimes won't apply for the jobs if they don't meet every one of the criteria that they're looking for. Sometimes we need to get into the arena, even when we think we're not ready. And it's our doubts and fears that can hold us back more than anything else. And then along with that is change can be scary. Change, again, is something that we don't have control over. But I think this quote really just hit me. Every good thing that has happened in your life happened because something changed. And it may not seem like it at the time that it happened. I've been through a divorce, moving across country, not getting a job I wanted. But when you look back on it, if you can be positive and learn from every situation, I think it's true that everything good came from change. If something stays the same and it never changes, that's not where the growth is going to happen. And it's really those why I think of stained glass, and there's a Japanese concept of putting gold in things that are broken to make them even more beautiful. And I think it's really, as we continue on this journey of life and we age, it's really those life changes that lead us where we need to be, and when you're open to them. This is another great graphic for those who face disappointment. And I love the first line, the first picture there is your plan. My oldest daughter, and she would kill me if she heard me saying this right now, so I hope she never finds this on the internet, had told me a few years ago that she was going to go to college and meet her husband, and that he was going to be a professional basketball player, and they're going to have twins, and she's going to live in Hawaii, and they're going to happily ever after. And I smiled at her and didn't tell her what I really thought of her perfect straight line, which is kind of up there on the first graph. And she'll find out reality on her own terms someday. And I hope that her dream does come true. But I think for a lot of us, it's really much more like this, and ups and downs. And it's not directly where you think it's going to lead you, but inevitably, I think for those of us who embrace the change, embrace life, you end up someplace better than you could ever think about. And what I like to get at there, though, is last year I had a big disappointment, and I really struggled with accepting the disappointment. And I did a lot of research of trying to figure out, how do you deal, though, in the moment when something's disappointing you and you don't want it to be the way it is. And the 5 tips that kind of help me, and a lot of times when I'm struggling with something, I don't know if this helps anybody, it's like there's so much knowledge out there. Sometimes I'll just think about what are the 2 or 3 things I need to remember, and then when I start ruminating, I just go back to those and I remind myself of what are those 1 or 2 or 3 things. And first is, sometimes we just need to believe it. And number 2 was powerful for me, was even if you accept something, you can accept it knowing that that's not what you wanted to be. And I think that that can be a powerful thing. Not taking it personally. I've said that more than once. I know that I take things a lot more personally than they want to be, and most of the time it has nothing to do with us as individuals. Telling yourself it could have been worse. And this has to do with social comparison and comparing up or down. But sometimes that just makes me feel better. And I don't know if that's something that resonates with you. And this 5th one makes me laugh, because I think, again, whenever we can find humor, there's not enough funny cat and dog videos on the internet that you can never have too many of those, or the Bernie Sanders memes. But yell plot twist and remind yourself that even if something isn't what you wanted to happen, that it's going to make your story more interesting. And I think if you can kind of have faith that you don't know what the ending is. I saw something else great on the internet, which was a powerful image for me, and I'd like to share it if it resonates with you, was imagine going into a movie theater and you caught the end of the movie you wanted to see the beginning of. You got there early. So you sit down and you see the happy ending. And then you stay to watch the entire movie from the beginning with a whole new crowd. And you already know the ending of the movie, but the whole crowd doesn't. So you see there's ups and downs and twists and disappointments and the whole story plot line, but you're sitting there calmly because you know it all works out in the end. The audience doesn't know that, so they're reacting to every up and down. And if we can kind of remind ourselves, and this is maybe where it's tricking ourselves, but if you can just believe it's going to work out and that this happened for a reason to leave you somewhere better, it can sometimes calm you and again let you be open to those doors that are opening around you. Judgment. Something that really hit me that I think I found in the first year or two, or the past year or two, was that those of us who judge others probably are the harshest judges of ourselves. And if I'm honest, I'll catch myself thinking thoughts about people in person and social media, and it's not healthy for us to do that. I don't think it puts out good energy in the world. I think it's totally normal and human. But a lot of the times the things that we're judging people on don't make us feel good. And then also it's probably us judging ourselves on the same dimension because it's something we're insecure about. And I really do think that if we're judging other people, we're also judging ourselves. And I think it's so important to love ourselves and to have grace and being comfortable with who we are. There's something called social attribution in psychology too. And this is powerful. It has to do with the fact that imagine that you see someone driving crazy down the street. They're swerving in and out of traffic. And if you're like me, your first thought may be, look at that person driving crazy. And you make an assumption about their personality. They're not responsible. They don't care about other people. They're whatever it is. But if you are late for a meeting, or let's say you're driving somebody to the hospital, or you just got a call that your child is in danger or is hurt. I don't know about you, but I'd be driving like a crazy maniac trying to get there. And I know the situation. So social attribution theory has to do with the fact that when we consider our own behavior, we know the entire situation that's created it. Oftentimes we don't know the situation around somebody, so we make that attribution it's about their personality. So I think that that's an example of where social psychology can sometimes help us too. So judging is something to catch ourselves in, but then also realize you don't know everything about somebody's situation. And another little kind of switch you can do is, and I have a little stick it to remind myself, is try to assume positive intent wherever you can. And I think, again, we see what we look for. And if you can assume a positive intent, you're going to be putting out a positive energy out to the universe, and you're going to be more likely to have those positive interactions. Because if we look for somebody that they're doing something not with a positive intent, you're definitely going to see it. We see what we look for. And this is a great graphic if you haven't seen it. But again, just remembering that just because something isn't your experience doesn't mean it's somebody else's experience. And I love how when you look from the person on the side, it looks like there's 4 blocks there, but on the other way, it's 3 blocks. So just because it's not your perception of something, you can't say that that's not somebody else's perception. So giving validity for what they're saying. And then some last check-ins. I heard on a recent podcast, it was somebody had written a book, and it was that she did a whole year of saying yes to everything that she was asked to do. And I thought that sounded great. But as somebody who probably overcommits too much, I thought I need to say no more. And so I think a good question to ask ourselves is, do you need to say yes to more things because maybe you've gotten into a rut, or do you need to say no to more things because it's not really speaking to you and you need to take time more for yourself? Are you making a decision by not making a decision? Many times we have decisions and life pivot points that could take us in a new direction. And I think it's always a good reminder to remember that sometimes if you don't make a decision about something, that actually is a decision also. Fasting is a part of a lot of different religions. And when I say, could you fast from something to make yourself feel better? It's not just food. Could it be social media? Could it be TV? Could it be alcohol? It doesn't need to be for an entire day. It doesn't need to be forever. But is there something that you could do again to make your day better by maybe taking a break from something? Whatever that is. Maybe it's a friend who brings you down and you need to take a break from that. Watching too much news right now. I said this before, are you focusing more on problems or solutions? Or are you just letting yourself go in a circle thinking about what a problem is? Or maybe sometimes we need to focus more on the solutions, or just take a break from thinking about it. And then this last question is really powerful. And I think this is a great prompt to journal about and really listen to what your soul tells you. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? So I have a little summary slide here just for those 10 top tips. Good days make a good life. Watch your thoughts. Remember, there's things we can't control, so be it. Surrender. So what? Stay in your own lane. Gratefulness leads to happiness. Look forward, not backwards. Be flexible and take opportunities as they come. Be brave. Shift your point of view when you don't get what you want. Be careful when judging others. And then those last questions to ask yourself. I love books. I'm guessing anybody who's on here too is potentially also a reader, or you wouldn't be looking for self-knowledge and growth. These are some of the books that I felt compelled to tell you, and I believe in intuition. So I don't know if you've read any of them. I'd love, if we have time for questions, I'd love to know what you thought, if you have read any of these, or if you have other books that you'd like to recommend. But I do think that books come into our life for a reason when we're ready for them. And I think it's always interesting how you can read a book and get a different message when you're at a different point in your life. So I just wanted to take a chance to share those, if those are meaningful for anybody. And then I'm on Facebook if you'd like to connect, Twitter, Instagram. I've been publishing recently on an online forum called Elephant Journal, and that's my email. So happy to connect in any other way, and happy to have any other discussion or questions that we have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burke. That was wonderful. I'm sure we all can use those tips, and this is such a different time for all of us, so we can all take some of this knowledge with us. So thank you for being here. Any questions from any of the participants that you'd like to ask Dr. Burke directly? Everyone's muted, so if you would like to, you can. Go ahead, Ruth.
I really am impressed with your presentation, and I did see you on KUSI. And I love this cognitive, I call it cognitive therapy, but maybe it's also philosophy. One of my problems is that I'm always trying to solve everybody else's problems. And then I try to convince them to my way of thinking on solving their problem. And instead of focusing on myself, I'm always trying to help other people. So what do you think about that?
I think it's, I can only speak from my personal experience, and I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I just want to give that disclaimer. I know a lot of times I don't want to focus on my own stuff, so I'll look at other people. I personally am codependent, and I like feeling needed and of service. I grew up in a household where it was never good enough, and so I feel like sometimes I can only be loved if I'm of value and I'm perfect. And so I don't know if that may be something that you feel. I would just tell you, I don't know you, but you are perfect exactly as you are. Make your own life what you want it to be. And there's a great book, I want to say her name's Kathy Byron Kelly, but it's called The Work, if you want to Google it. And I didn't put it on the book list. But she talks about whenever we have any questions about something that's troubling us or trying to control and predict, asking ourselves if that's really true. And I think that, it's trusting people to work out things themselves can sometimes be, and what might be your way may not be somebody else's way. And you're of value without having to fix everything else. Just be you would be what I'd say to you, is in my heart to you.
Yeah, I saw Deepak Chopra talk about that subject, and the fact that if you're in a situation and somebody's got a big problem, then let them figure out how to solve their big problem. And their solution may not be the solution you were hoping them to choose, but they made the choice. So kind of give it up.
Yeah, I think it's detaching with love is what I think about a lot, where people have to live their own life and they're on their own journey to learn their own lesson. And I know, I'm not sure if you're a mother, I look at my kids, and I think the hardest thing is I remind myself I'm going to be the swimming pool wall for my 18-year-old daughter. I have an 18, a 15, and a 12-year-old, that they're going to make their own mistakes and learn their own things and be there for when people want to come back. But being that loving tree that they can come back to is probably better than pushing them down a certain path whenever you can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and your truth.
Thank you, Ruth. Any additional questions for Dr. Burke? I know there's, again, everyone's muted, so ask a question. Hi, Edith.
Hi, I was just going to kind of address that last lady who spoke. I've always found that when your children are growing up and you're trying to help them, or even they're older, you never actually get the full story. They tell you what's happening and you say, oh yes, that's happening, and oh yes, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, and then you try to solve it, and then like a week or so later you get another piece of information that you didn't process, and so I mean it changes the whole thing of what you would say. So I think it's best just to kind of back it off, because you really don't know what they're going through, and they're not telling you everything anyway. And so I think that that's really something to keep in your mind, so that you don't get too involved in it, and then then they get upset with you and everything. And so sorry, that's my take on it.
I love that. And that's so, as the mother of teenagers, I'm learning that the hard way. So thank you for the reminder too.
Great. Thank you for adding that, Edith. Any additional questions for Dr. Burke? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask her directly. And then see if anybody else has muted. Or if you don't want to chat, you could also use the chat function if you'd like.
Have you written a book?
No, I'm thinking about it. That's why I'm dipping my toes in the water through Elephant Journal, and I just got my first website to potentially start putting out newsletters. So please, if you'd like to connect, definitely we'll keep you abreast of what I'm doing. And I think it's just, again, I don't think anybody comes into anybody's life by accident, and there's so much. It's amazing. I think of social media. I'm grateful that I didn't grow up when we had it out there, because I think it's so hard on our younger generation, but I think it's amazing how we can connect across some miles up to Canada. And I hope you get back to San Diego soon. And but I think it's one of my things. But then it's that fear, and so that's why it's probably the thing I need to do, because I'm scared to do it. So.
Well, great. Any additional questions? I don't know if Ruth, you have anything else, but we have a few more people on, but they're muted. So
I have now what are you doing for a living? Because I wondered if you had support groups, or did Zoom support groups with people.
So my day job is I work at Sandag, and I'm the director of research and program management. I started out doing, I got my Ph.D. at UCSD in experimental psychology, and I do research by day. I have not started doing anything like that. Again, I never want to mischaracterize that I'm a clinical psychologist. This really just is that part of what I've done is just my own journey. And I don't know if anybody, I think one of the books I put on there was Cheryl Strayed, Dear Sugar. She wrote an advice column. I think that we can all share knowledge in groups, so it'd be something I'd be open to talking about, trying to figure that out. I think there's a lot of different ways to connect with that. So please follow up with me on email on that. But I definitely think that we can all learn from each other. So I think of it more as life coaching rather than necessarily anything clinical, but definitely something on the horizon, possibly.
Dr. Burke, there's a question. If you can expand on the law of attraction, explain it a little bit further.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I've just started researching this more and more, and the law of attraction basically talks about, I read this great book called The Vortex, and it's Abraham Hicks, and I never want to push down my own spiritual beliefs down anybody's throat. So please know that that I think that our human mind can't even process the vastness of the complexity of the universe. And so I tell my children, this is what I believe, because it makes me personally feel good. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. But I think that I consider myself more spiritual now than religious, because I think that we all have the spirit of the universe, the spirit of God, whatever that is, that's beyond our comprehension inside us. And in this Vortex book, it talked about that there's the spirit that was us before, and that will be us once we're out of this body. And anytime we feel any sense of discomfort, it's not because of somebody else, it's because our human body, our ego, is not connected or in alignment with that deeper spiritual truth that, again, is more love than fear. And with the law of attraction, it says that you can get anything that you want if you put it out to the universe, if you state it in a positive way. And so if you're focused on, I don't have enough money, I'm going to get cheated on, I'm not going to be respected, you'll get more of that because the universe gives you what you're asking for, easy, because they don't hear the negatives. But that if you put out to the universe what you want in a positive way, the only thing you need to do, I shouldn't say the only thing you need to do. There's a lot of books on law of attraction, but it's keeping a high positive vibration, being positive, imagining that you already have it. And I think this goes to that self-fulfilling prophecy I was trying to speak of. So let's say that you want to have your dream job. I think it's important to try to keep yourself in a good space. Obviously, take the steps to do what you need to do to get that job you want, get the relationship you want. And then the good things will come to you if you put it out to the universe. Gabby Bernstein writes a law about being a super attractor, which would be another book that I'd recommend. I'll be honest, right now I'm single, and one of my intentions is I'd love to have the love of my life come in, and I've kind of put that out to the universe. But at the same time, I'm loving myself enough right now to be open to however that looks. And it's not being set to any timing, but it's keeping that high vibration so that you can be happy wherever you are, and then trust that the universe will bring it if you're taking the steps to get you there. So that was kind of a long answer. There's a lot of books out there, and I'd love to connect and share some of the books I've read on it. But I think, again, it's coming to meeting opportunity when you can, putting the intention out there, trusting the universe, and really trying to keep that positive vibration, because I think we all have a dream. We all have a life's purpose here, is my belief. And when we're in alignment with that, and we're open to it, we're taking off our mask, we have the capacity to get there. And I think it's being patient with the universe and time, and taking opportunities as they come to us.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. She says, very helpful, thank you. So any additional questions for Dr. Burke from anyone?
I do. Your kind of your religious upbringing, your spirituality, that you were in parochial school for 12 years. Mm-hmm. Did that influence your thinking and your philosophy of life?
Very much so. I carry a lot of Catholic guilt around. I can feel shame about anything. What I love about learning about different religions, and I really think after doing study in a lot of different ways, there's less. That's why I like to call myself more spiritual than religious now, is I think that when you look at every religion in the world, it comes down to the golden rule and turning the other cheek. And I think everything else is just in the minutia. And I think that I think I think community is great in the church settings. I know for me, being out in nature can sometimes fulfill that same need. I joined a local church up in Rancho Bernardo because I think it's important to be of service and to not be, again, that the ego can be so powerful. And I think when we can look at other people and try to help them, I think that's important. But I really do think that whether it's Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad, it's all that same lesson. And I think that they were really that enlightened when you get to that level where you don't just see us as individuals, that we're all connected in some way that's beyond maybe commandments or rules. It's really just, I think it comes down to love. So I would say love is my religion now.
Mm-hmm. That's good. The other thing I think with all that you imparted today, we're a senior center, and socialization has made a big impact on the mental health of seniors. And your discussion today really geared into many ideas about mental health. Mm-hmm. And I I think what we've been seeing is that people that are isolated are having a difficult time, and it would be interesting to take your ideas and talk to them about what they need to do with their lives if they're feeling isolated. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it definitely does. And if there's, I'd love to talk with Nancy more if there's ways that we can, again, be a service and connect and get messages out there. And I think everything offers challenges and opportunities. And I think we really are at a unique time to say, we've hit the pause button and how do we need to connect and find those connections. And as somebody who, I'm an introvert, who can maybe turn it on when I need to, but I definitely like one-on-one connections more. But how do you find that social connection? Because we really are social creatures. And I think whether you find that in groups or one-on-one, it's so important to realize that we're not the only one out there. And I'll be honest, I like having, I was an only child growing up of older parents, and my mother was from the South, and very much was, again, that level of, never good enough. So I like being perfect and sharing your story that you do have, realizing that everybody else has a lot of the same stories and the fears and comparing, social comparison and not good enough. And I think when we can all realize that we're more alike than we're not, and getting over that judgment, that can be a long way of sharing our stories and realizing that we're all fragile and beautiful and broken, and we're good enough.
I think that would be really helpful with the seniors that we're connecting with. If we did some things together, and possibly another Zoom meeting around socialization and some of the same philosophies that you've imparted. I'm calling it philosophy because it's a lot of it is for me anyway. So that would be helpful. So I didn't know Nancy or our marketing person, Barbara Burton, that might be able to do that. So we could either have another Zoom or also imparting knowledge to our members.
I would love to.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, wonderful. And this presentation is being recorded, so we will post this on our website so that others can watch and take those 10 tips that Dr. Burke presented with them and hopefully use them in daily life. But we will chat about future programming as well. Thank you again to everyone who participated. Dr. Burke, thank you for your time and for sharing this knowledge with us. If anyone have any last minute questions for Dr. Burke? Okay. Well, with that, thank you everyone again for joining us. I hope that you come back and see us. We have wonderful programs that you can find at our website. It's www.ljcommunitycenter.org. And to contact Dr. Burke, you see her information on the screen here. Please take down her information, and we can also send an email out with her contact info if you have additional questions for her. So thank you all for being here again. Have a wonderful day. Stay well, stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. That was great. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. It was nice to meet you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Nancy.